This is Earth. Do not approach. Do not scan. Do not respond. You were warned. The message pulsed every 18 hours from a lifeless blue planet on the galactic fringe, an echo from a species the galaxy believed extinct. When the Viazari war fleet ignored the warning and breached orbit, they expected conquest. Instead, they triggered Hellhard Protocol and woke up Dane Walker. They called it a ghost signal. A pulse of archaic binary code echoing from the ruins of a long-dead world. It repeated every 18 hours on all known bands, unchanging since the first detection. No data, no visuals, no aggression. Just the same cold words, translated across every known tongue. This is Earth. Do not approach. Do not scan. Do not respond. You were warned. The Viazari Dominion laughed. Archlord Vexar stood aboard the bridge of the Dread Flare, a Conqueror-class command vessel wrapped in obsidian armor and powered by the stolen cores of collapsed suns. Around him, 10,000 warships shimmered in formation, the largest planetary conquest force the galaxy had seen in 2 centuries. He stared at the holographic projection of the blue and brown marble hovering in the darkness beyond their viewport. Extinct cowards, he sneered. They couldn't even die with honor. Send the first wave. Let's see what this husk still holds. Commander Taloke, his second in command, hesitated for the briefest second. Archlord, perhaps we should. Vexar did in turn. Did I ask for hesitation? No, Archlord. Then open the gate. With a hum of power, the first wave of assault carriers began descending into Earth's atmosphere, their hulls glowing red as they breached the electromagnetic field. The moment they crossed the threshold, comms shattered. Every screen aboard the Dread Flare went dark. Then white. Then one word appeared in Terran High Gothic, a language dead for over 4 centuries. Awakened. And in that instant, everything changed. The fleet's internal navigation scrambled. Ships collided. Artificial gravity inverted. Entire brigades of warriors floated weightless, screaming as their own armor crushed them against bulkheads. No shots had been fired. No weapons had been launched. And yet destruction had already begun. Back on the surface, Dane Walker opened his eyes. He stood alone atop the bones of old Manhattan, his boots crunching ash and rust beneath him. The wind howled, not with air, but memory, trapped radio echoes from before silence claimed the sky. His body hummed with dormant power. His mind synced with Grim, the cortical war eye fused to his spine. Enemy count? He said aloud. Grim's voice was cold, efficient. 9,742 ships remain in orbit. 300 drop pods incoming. Orbital sensors indicate 17 Dominion command relays active. He stretched, and the air around him vibrated. Been a while. Protocol Hellhard is authorized. Engage? Engaged, he said, smiling without warmth. The drop pods screamed through the air like iron meteors, slamming into the crust around him. Viazari shock troopers erupted from within, towering giants clad in nanosilk armor and wielding plasma halberds. They formed a circle, weapons raised. One step forward, eyes pulsing red. Identify yourself. Dane rolled his neck. You're in my house. You are one, the trooper said. We are Legion. Cute. But I'm not here to fight fair. He touched the metal band on his wrist. Grim. Unleash. The ground beneath them exploded, not with fire, but with sound. A pulse wave of harmonic resonance detonated from beneath Dane's feet, passing through the invaders like a thought. The Viazari stumbled. Some screamed. Others dropped their weapons and clawed at their heads. What is this? The lead warrior bellowed. Your memories, Dane said. Weaponized. The Viazari began convulsing as their combat implants fed them false visuals, replays of every battle they'd ever lost, every moment of failure, humiliation, death. One fell to his knees, sobbing like a child. Another turned his weapon on himself, eyes wide with visions of a dead homeworld. Dane moved through them like wind through paper, his kinetic blades slicing through armor and bone. He didn't need to aim. Grimm calculated every trajectory. Each step was perfect. Each strike final. In 90 seconds it was done. The dead lay silent. Dane stood alone. "Broadcast this," he said. Grimm accessed the nearest intact Viazari relay. Across the fleet, every screen flickered once more. This time, it wasn't a signal. It was a man. Dane Valker appeared in full battle gear, standing over the corpses of Dominion warriors. His voice was low, calm, and final. "You were warned. This planet is not defenseless. It is not abandoned. It is not yours." He walked slowly to the nearest drop pod, dragged the body of the lead Viazari warrior to the camera, and held it up. "This is Earth. We don't broadcast threats. We broadcast consequences." He let the body drop with a metallic thud. Then he grinned. "I'm just the doorman. Wait till the planet wakes up." The feed cut. In the Dominion fleet, chaos reigned. Admirals screamed across broken comms, desperate for clarity. Battalions refused to sink. Internal security systems turned on their crews. One ship reported the appearance of a Terran child whispering in the captain's ear. Seconds later, it exploded. Back on the dread flare, Vexar's fists shattered the armrest of his throne. "What is this sorcery? What technology can do this?" Commander Taloke trembled. "It's not tech. Not anymore. I think the humans evolved." "Impossible." Taloke pointed to the growing magnetic storm forming across the planet's atmosphere. "Then explain that." Vexar's eyes widened. The clouds weren't random. They were forming patterns, symbols. A language. A warning. The message scrawled across the stratosphere in ionized lightning. "Round 2 begins now." On Earth, Dane stood at the edge of a newly opened chasm. Beneath him, the ancient machinery of the Vault-born pulsed to life, towers of weaponized thought, memory, and time reactivating. He whispered to himself. "Grimm, Q system alignment. Planet mind link stable. All combat nodes responding. Let's give them a proper welcome." In orbit, the Viazari fleet braced for retaliation. But they weren't ready. They'd brought war to a graveyard. And they'd just woken the dead. The Dominion's second wave launched without ceremony. Their honor was bruised, their fleet disoriented, and now they sought blood. A full battalion of Dominion ironclads descended from orbit, 20-meter biomechs, each piloted by a neural-linked warrior and armed with city-crushing plasma payloads. Above them, the command ship Dread Flare restored communications under triple encryption. Orders were clear: decimate the source of the broadcast, and leave no structure standing on the surface. Earth, they declared, was to be sterilized. On the planet below, Dane Valker stood atop a jagged column of steel, his boots magnetically anchored to the debris of a long-forgotten satellite relay tower. Grimm's voice echoed in his skull. "Telemetry confirms Ironclad-class units inbound. 12 seconds to visual." "Good," Dane muttered, tightening the gauntlet seal on his left hand. "Let them come. Let them see what we made down here." "They won't understand it," Grimm replied. "They never do." The first ironclad hit the ground like a comet. Dust burst outward in concentric waves as its plasma drills flared to life. Dane didn't move. The second, third, and fourth followed. Then came a wall of them, 15 total, forming a tight circle around him. Their metal carapaces hissed and shimmered with heat, multi-limbed, armored like gods, each marked with the Dominion seal etched in molten alloy. One stepped forward and opened its external audio channel. "You are surrounded. You will be dismantled. Any last declarations?" Dane smirked. "Yeah. Thanks for bringing the toys." Without another word, he leapt forward. The ironclads opened fire, but Dane blink-shifted midair, displacing via Grimm's quantum sink. He reappeared atop the lead mech and drove a gravity spike through its cranial port. The ironclad staggered, lost control, and exploded as Dane launched off its frame mid-blast. He twisted, spun, landed in a crouch, and sprinted through the carnage. 3 down, Grimm reported. "No survivors," Dane growled. The remaining ironclads regrouped, switching to melee. Massive blades extended, edges glowing with antimatter frequencies. Dane dodged one, two, then slid beneath a third, igniting his forearm-mounted molecular saw, slicing through the leg of the nearest giant. Sparks flew as it collapsed. Another swung wide. Dane caught its arm, redirected its force, and sent it crashing into a second mech. "Grim, sync pulse ready?" he asked. "Charged. Deploying on your mark." "Mark." A shockwave burst from Dane's chest, not visible, not sound, but memory. The remaining ironclads froze for 1/2 second, enough. Their pilots, mentally linked to their machines, suddenly experienced something no Dominion soldier was ever trained to handle: doubt. Then came the fear. The sense of home. The smell of childhood. The concept of losing. Humanity had distilled psychological warfare into something far beyond language. These warriors weren't fighting a man, they were fighting the essence of humanity's trauma and rebirth. Dane capitalized. He moved like liquid fire, his blade humming with harmonic resonance. He severed limbs, shattered joints, cracked neural cores. One ironclad tried to flee. Dane launched a tether, reeled it back in, and drove a spear of thermite through its reactor. When the final one fell, Grim went silent for 2 seconds. Wave neutralized. Dane stood amidst the wreckage, coated in soot and vaporized metal. His chest heaved once. Then he straightened. "Broadcast the message again." "Are you certain?" Grim asked. "They're escalating. This guarantees another response." "Good. They're still not listening." Grim opened the comms, patched directly into the Dominion's high-priority channel. Once again, the fleet saw his face. "This is Dane Walker. That was cute. You're adapting. Almost made me sweat." He leaned closer to the interface. "But you're still sending hammers to break the unbreakable. I'm not alone down here. Not anymore." In space, Vexar slammed his clawed hand into the comms panel. "He's bluffing. Earth has no survivors. We've scanned for heat, energy, life, nothing." Talokay shifted uncomfortably beside him. "Sir, look." The tactical display lit up as Earth's crust flared with synchronized geothermal pulses. What seemed like tectonic instability suddenly began to form a pattern. Lines. Geometry. Entire continents shifted subtly, not naturally, but intentionally. "Grim," Dane said. "Unlock Vaultborn Sector Theta. I want the satellites online. All of them. Authorization confirmed. Cerberus array charging." High above, Earth's old defense ring, once deactivated, forgotten, woke. Buried among debris fields and abandoned stations, satellite after satellite blinked to life. Old solar lenses rotated. Targeting systems reacquired focus. Earth wasn't broadcasting a message anymore. It was aiming. On board the Dread Flare, Dominion engineers screamed as early warning alerts fired across their consoles. Hundreds of silent, inert Earth orbit objects now registered as high-risk ordnance. Even worse, Dominion tech couldn't override them. They didn't respond to hails. They didn't answer standard protocol. "They're ancient," one tech whispered. "Built before the collapse. Still functional. Fire on them!" Vexar bellowed. "Destroy them before they activate." Too late. From orbit, a ring of light surrounded the Earth. Then the sky shattered. Dozens of high-altitude kinetic rods, nicknamed God's Teeth by old Earth forces, rained down at orbital velocity. No explosions. No heat. Just impact. Cities the Dominion had begun to claim were reduced to craters. Troop deployments were wiped out. Fleet landing zones disappeared under supersonic pillars of tungsten. On the ground, Dane stood still, watching the sky light up. They wanted Earth. They got it. Cerberus array reset, Grim confirmed. More payloads standing by. Planet Mind requesting further engagement. "Let it eat," Dane said. "Let the old ghosts stretch their claws." In the silence that followed, Dominion morale began to crack. Soldiers reported dreams while awake. Hallucinations of human children holding mirrors. Battleias began questioning orders. Even the dread flare's system stuttered, as if the ship itself sensed what was coming. Taloke looked to Vexar. We should withdraw. We are the Dominion, Vexar hissed. We do not flee from ghosts. Taloke didn't argue. But something in his eyes said it all. Below, Dane looked up at the stars. They're not just fighting Earth, he whispered. They're fighting everything we became. And what are we? Grim asked. Dane's eyes flashed. The answer to extinction? The Dominion fleet had fractured. In orbit, ships once synchronized like clockwork now spun out of formation, their calms hijacked by static pulses encoded with long-dead Terran languages. No one could trace the origin. Some captains heard whispers. Others saw things. Battles that hadn't happened yet. Memories that weren't theirs. The Viezari, built for control and domination, had no protocol for hallucination. Vexar paced the command bridge of the dread flare, his claws carving grooves into the steel with each step. I want that planet erased. I want the crust cracked, the core bled out, the soil vitrified into memory. A junior officer's voice trembled. Our plasma barrages, they won't lock. Targeting systems show phantom coordinates. Vexar grabbed him by the throat, lifted him clean off the floor. Then switch to manual targeting and fire until this rock no longer casts a shadow. The officer choked out. Sir, it's not the planet. It's inside the system. Something's interfering from everywhere. He dropped the body before the answer came. A second voice from Tactical screamed. Something is moving. From inside the crust. Not tectonic. It's assembling. On the surface, Dane Valker stood atop the remains of a Dominion crawler tank, visor lowered. Grim fed him real-time imaging from the planet's subsurface structures. Vault-born Theta had activated. The planet mind wasn't just awake, it was now angry. Status of the Cerberus array? He asked. Stable. Beam systems ready. Planet mind requests deployment of Leviathan-class unit, designation, Pale Horse. Pale Horse? Dane blinked. I thought that thing was shut down. It was. Until they tried to erase us again. Deploy it. From deep beneath the planet, a fault line cracked and split. Dust billowed. Mountains trembled. Then something impossible emerged, an autonomous warform the size of a city, forged from pre-collapse alloys and armored with adaptive atmospheric shielding. It had no face, no cockpit. It didn't need one. It was Earth's rage-given form. In orbit, Vexar's fleet opened fire. Beams of plasma and dark matter struck the Leviathan head-on. It didn't flinch. Instead, it raised one limb, part railgun, part gravity lens, and fired. The nearest Dominion destroyer crumpled like paper, folding in on itself as its own mass inverted and dragged the rest of its squadron with it. A dozen Viezari vessels vanished into a singularity, screaming into themselves. Dane began to run. He sprinted toward the advancing wave of reinforcements on the ground, another division of Viezari elites sent to kill him personally. Their formation was textbook. Every footfall calculated. Every weapon aligned. It didn't matter. As Dane closed the distance, his voice roared over open channels. I'm the last echo of a species that refused to die. I'm what happens when you underestimate extinction. And you brought this war to my front door. He hit them like a meteor. His blades screamed through the air. One Viezari tried to flank him. Dane caught the attack with his gauntlet, twisted the arm backward, then hurled the soldier into his own ranks. Gunfire erupted, but Dane moved too fast. Every motion a blur. Every strike fatal. Behind him, the Leviathan warform continued its march, obliterating everything with precision strikes. The sky burned. Grim pinged his HUD. We have a problem. Of course we do. Dominion command ship is activating their Omega-class weapon. The Thronebreaker. Dane slowed for the briefest second. That's not real. It was theoretical. They just made it real. In high orbit, behind the dread flare, space shimmered. Something massive emerged from a dimensional pocket. The Thronebreaker wasn't a ship. It was a living engine of destruction, a cathedral-sized weapon designed to eat planets from the inside. Its maw opened, drawing in energy from nearby stars. Earth trembled. Dane exhaled. "What's our move?" "Nothing we have on this planet can destroy that weapon." "That's not true." "Correction, nothing you're allowed to use." "Override it." "You're not authorized." "I'm Dane Valker," he said, activating a deep-layer neural command that pulsed into Grimm's core. "I'm not asking." There was a pause. Then Grimm's tone changed. "Vaultborn Prime unlocking. Protocol Ragnarok initiated." The ground split again, this time deeper, louder. The world itself shuddered. And beneath the crust, a final weapon came online. It wasn't a missile. It wasn't a drone. It was a thought, a psychic construct encoded in neural Blackstone, powered by the stored consciousness of over 100 billion dead Terrans. It didn't fire. It didn't move. It manifested. In orbit, the Thronebreaker halted. Its sensors screamed with conflicting input. Reality rippled. Dominion AI cores began to fail, not from damage, but from logic collapse. They couldn't understand what they were seeing. The weapon Earth had unleashed wasn't technology. It was humanity's memory. The first war. The last breath. The sacrifice of mothers. The fury of orphans. 1 billion years of survival screamed into the cosmos. That was the payload. Raw emotion. Uncompromising purpose. And it hit like vengeance. The Thronebreaker ruptured, not from pressure, but from grief. Its core destabilized. Its structure screamed. Then silence. It vanished in a ripple of light, erased from every Dominion system. No data. No wreckage. No explanation. Dane stood alone as the Leviathan kneeled behind him. The surviving Viezari on the ground dropped their weapons. Some fled. Others simply fell to their knees, unable to speak. He opened a channel. "This was your god weapon? This was your empire's pride? You tried to break Earth with tools. We don't fight with tools. We fight with meaning." Grimm's voice softened. "Planet Mind confirms, Dominion command chain has fractured. Majority of their fleet is retreating. Vexar is still aboard Dread Flare. He refuses to flee." Dane cracked his knuckles. "Then we're not done." He began walking toward the last Dominion stronghold, the earth parting before him, the skies still red with retribution. His voice, one last time, carried across the stars. "You were warned. This planet doesn't forgive." The final assault began in silence. No war drums, no fleet commands, no arrogant declarations. Just the quiet hum of a planet no longer afraid and a man with nothing left to prove. Dane Valker walked through the devastation his species had endured and rewritten, his boots echoing against the fractured shell of Earth's last battlefield. Above him loomed the Dread Flare, now the sole Dominion vessel refusing retreat. It floated like a wounded beast bleeding command signals into deep space, refusing surrender not out of pride, but because Vexar didn't understand what surrender meant. Grimm scanned its defenses. Remaining weapon systems are still functional. High-yield plasma lances. Ion mesh armor. Biopsionic countermeasures. Hull integrity, 76%. Shields at full. Crew 38,000. One very angry commander. Dane cracked his neck. And one more transmission to make. Vexar stared at the broken surface below from the Dread Flare's obsidian bridge, jaw clenched, talons curled around the armrests of his throne. The fleet was gone. His armies were ash. His last weapon had been erased not by impact, but by a scream of emotion no Viezari could comprehend. He should have left. But he hadn't. "He mocks us," he hissed. "This Valker, this thing. He is not a man. He is not a soldier. He is a disease. An echo with fists." One of the bridge technicians looked up, eyes hollow. "He's requesting to board. Alone." Vexar stood, voice low and bitter. "Let him. Seal the chamber once he enters." If I must die, I'll do it with his bones in my fists. On the ground, a column of hard light formed around Dane, lifting him into orbit through a vertical beam constructed from Earth's own magnetic field. He said nothing. The air shimmered around his shoulders as Grim linked with the ship's outer hull and forced the corridor open. "You're insane," Grim whispered. "This is a suicide run." "No. This is a message." The corridor closed behind him. Ahead, a single blast door parted, revealing the Dominion's war chamber, grandiose, circular, its ceiling etched with the names of all the species the Dominion had conquered. Vexar stood at the center, armed in ceremonial battle armor laced with synthetic godbone and hyperreactive nanosteel. He said nothing as Dane entered. "This is the end," Dane said. "No," Vexar answered, voice heavy with venom. "This is the beginning of your pain." He charged. Dane didn't move. Vexar's first strike came in with a roar and a blade designed to cut through tank armor. Dane dodged left, parried with a forearmed shield, and struck back. The sound of the impact cracked the bulkhead. Again and again they moved, gods of war in a tomb of arrogance. Vexar fought like a creature bred to dominate. Dane fought like a ghost with unfinished business. "You don't even fight like a species anymore!" Vexar screamed, slashing wildly. "You fight like memory! Like vengeance that never ends!" "Exactly," Dane muttered, ducking low and driving a kinetic fist into his ribs. "We stopped fighting for survival a long time ago. Now we fight to make sure you never forget." Blood, black and hot, splattered the chamber floor. Vexar snarled, eyes flaring with rage. He triggered a latent psionic pulse from his armor, attempting to fracture Dane's skull from within. Dane faltered, knee dropping to the floor for half a heartbeat. "You're too late," Vexar spat. "We'll rebuild. You'll be gone. Dust again." Dane raised his head slowly. "You still don't get it. I'm not the weapon. Earth is. I'm just its voice." With a snap of his fingers, Grim sent the final payload. Across the Dominion's remaining systems, a virus activated. Not digital. Not chemical. Cultural. For the last 8 hours, while the battle raged, Earth had been silently uploading its history into every Dominion channel, uncensored, uncompressed, unaltered. The truth. The brutality. The beauty. The failures. The triumphs. The grief. All of it. And now, every Dominion archive was rewriting itself. "Do you know what happens when your species sees what we were?" Dane said. "They don't just fear us. They start to remember themselves." Vexar staggered, sweat pooling beneath his armor. "You think stories win wars?" "No. But they make sure your children never become you." Dane lunged one last time, and this time, there was no dodge, no block. Just a clean, final strike through Vexar's hardcore. The Dominion warlord fell without a sound, his armor clattering across the floor as the energy left his limbs. For a moment, everything was still. Then Grim's voice broke through. "Dread flare systems unlocked. Broadcasting to all Dominion territories. Message queued." Dane knelt beside the fallen body and activated the chamber-wide communicator. "This is Dane Valker of Earth. You invaded us. You were warned. You didn't listen. And now you don't get to forget. We won't wipe you out. We'll do worse. We'll educate you." He stood as the dread flare's lights flickered and dimmed. The ship was dying. Around him, escape pods launched. Non-combatants. Officers. Survivors. "Let them go," he said. "Message delivered to 312 planetary nodes," Grim confirmed. "They'll know. They always know. Too late." The chamber shook. Grim's countdown started ticking in the corner of Dane's HUD. "You won't survive this, you know," Grim added. "There's no return trajectory." Dane smiled faintly. "I wasn't supposed to survive the last war either." He looked down at Earth one last time through the viewport. It glowed, not as a warning, but as a promise. Behind its scars, it was still alive. Still ready? "You told me we were the last echo," he whispered, Grimm paused. I was wrong. The dread flare cracked in half as the Leviathan's orbiting railguns finished their sweep. From below, millions looked skyward. Across the galaxy, a single word repeated on every frequency. Remember. Because that was what humanity had become, not conquerors, not survivors. A lesson. One burned so deeply into history that no one would ever mistake silence for surrender again. The black box recovered from the wreckage of the dread flare didn't make it to Dominion High Command. It never reached any archive, military lab, or classified research vault. Instead, it was intercepted by a civilian freighter, an old, rusted Terran model that had been off the grid since the collapse. Its crew never spoke publicly about what they found, but every galactic network knew what followed. The story of Earth, of Dane Walker, and of the final war spread faster than any virus in Dominion history. They called it the human pulse. It wasn't a weapon. It wasn't a virus. It wasn't even data, not in the conventional sense. It was experience, a compressed memory cluster born from Grimm's final act before the dread flare was destroyed. When Dane Walker knew he wouldn't return, he did something no Dominion strategist ever expected. He uploaded himself. The pulse wasn't just a message. It was a mental projection. Any sapient mind that came into contact with it didn't just read about Earth's fall and rebirth. They felt it. The screams of the burned. The silence of the last breath. The moment Dane stood alone with nothing left but a choice to make extinction mean something. Billions of beings across the galaxy relived the last 10 minutes of his life. And it broke them. On the agricultural moons of Mir, war factories stopped overnight. On the Viezari colony worlds, children began to sketch blue marbles with white clouds. On neutral planets, Dominion propaganda collapsed under the sheer emotional weight of the truth. No military order had to be given. Armies disbanded themselves. The Dominion fell not with an invasion but with a whisper, echoed in the minds of every being who dared open the pulse. Dane Walker became the only soldier in history to end an empire with memory. The remnants of the Dominion, the ones who still clung to rank, ritual, and rage, gathered in the decaying core of the old Kareth Nebula. A place untouched by the pulse. They believed themselves immune. They claimed their minds were too disciplined, their code too embedded. They hadn't yet faced Earth's final message. The last transmission came not from Grimm, not from any network. It came from the stars themselves. A pattern of pulses, subtle shifts in cosmic radiation that formed coherent frequency waves only when interpreted by Dominion neural implants. It was Dane's voice. You don't understand. You never did. We didn't fight you because we hated you. We fought you because you thought you could erase meaning. The radiation's signature intensified. On every Dominion vessel within the nebula, internal lighting dimmed. Weapons powered down. The air became still. We weren't trying to win. We were trying to make sure you remembered. Every battle, every city, every last breath. That's who we are. That's what Earth became. The message looped once, then stopped. But its silence was worse than any threat. On the command deck of the last Dominion warcruiser, Admiral Krell demanded a report. There's nothing transmitting, his comms officer whispered. We're picking up no heat, no ships. Just ambient resonance. Then where is it coming from? Krell roared. The officer turned, eyes blank. From inside us. By then, it was too late. The human pulse had evolved. It didn't need a signal. It had turned biological, an emotional meme so powerful it embedded itself into genetic recall. It passed from parent to child. Not in words. In dreams. In instinct. In stories whispered under breath, even when the name Earth had been erased from public memory. But Earth hadn't been erased. It had become something more dangerous. It had become myth. Years passed. Then decades. The Dominion splintered into fractured city-states. No new wars began. Not because no one wanted them, but because no one could stomach the idea of repeating what had already been written in the stars. Across the edge of the galaxy, a small group of explorers, descendants of neutral systems, finally located Earth again. They didn't go there to conquer. They came to learn. To ask questions. To understand how one man had made history bleed without an army. What they found wasn't ruins. They found forests regrown. Skies cleared. Structures of crystal and alloy, humming with memory energy. Machines older than time still awake, still watching. At the heart of it, the planet mind spoke in a voice layered with billions. But they only asked for one name. And they were granted it. Dane Walker's memory was preserved not as data, but as ritual. New visitors didn't walk his battlefield. They experienced it, guided by the emotion-coded pathways left behind in the magnetic field. They felt the heat of the final blow. The silence after. The calm of sacrifice made not to be remembered, but to be understood. Back in galactic civilization, the word Walker became synonymous with warning. Marauders used to brag. We fight like Dominion. Now they whispered. We're not foolish enough to fight like the ones who ignored Walker. Humanity never reappeared in body. But it didn't need to. The pulse had done its work. It had changed the story. And in the end, that's what Dane always intended. Not victory. Not conquest. Legacy. One act. One man. One species that refused to die quietly. And a galaxy that would never again mistake silence for weakness.